So she talks about all the things we did and what we saw.
When Amanda Wilcox flips through photo albums and journals, she hears her daughter Laura's voice.
Bike ride down Haleakala.
These books are where she documented memories from every family trip, including their last one to Hawaii.
Is it hard to look at these photos?
You know, I just wish I could turn back the clock.
If she could, Amanda would rewind and change everything on January 10th, 2001, just a few months after these photos. That's when a gunman ended Laura's life with 4 bullets fired at point-blank range.
And I remember our older son just yelling out, "No!" I just suddenly felt like I was underwater, with my senses diminished. I walked from the kitchen to that chair there and sat down, and my 2 tall teenage sons sat in my lap. We were just stunned. And I realized life as we knew it was over.
The suspected gunman admitted to killing 3 people.
The killer had a history of mental illness, legal access to firearms, and a family that was concerned about him.
He had never been involuntarily committed, wasn't a criminal, so he did not have a firearm prohibition. They were worried about him. They had no legal tool for removing those guns.
But 2 decades later, with Amanda's help, family members and others now have a tool to intervene if they're worried about someone in crisis who has access to guns. It's called an extreme risk or red flag law.
A family member or a police officer can go to a court and get a temporary restraining order against somebody who they feel is a danger to society and get their guns, again, temporarily taken away. We have way too many mass shootings across the country where people saw signs and didn't do anything. And so this puts the power back in their hands.
California was one of the first states to institute an official red flag law in 2016. 16 other states and D.C. have passed their own versions, with several more actively working on legislation. In some, only law enforcement can petition the court. In others, family, mental health, or medical practitioners can do it.
This should be expanded to...
In California, Assemblymember Phil Ting recently got an expansion of that state's law passed, giving educators, employers, and even coworkers the option to ask the court to temporarily take someone's gun for days or weeks.
What do you say to people who worry it will go too far?
It really is up to a judge. These are the folks we've entrusted to be objective and to make decisions that are in the eyes of the common good. And so I feel very comfortable that they are the arbiters of issuing these.
Well, it's not a slippery slope, it's a cliff.
Some pro-gun groups say this kind of law violates due process because in some cases, a judge can initially decide on the temporary order after hearing just one side of the story. Then the person whose guns are being confiscated is surprised when police show up at their door with an order.
Problem is, the case has to be made to get their rights back, not vice versa. That's not the way our country works. We actually have and protect freedoms, and we're supposed to. And this red flag law that's spreading around the country does the opposite. Because this law is ripe for abuse, it's also dangerous for law enforcement.
Spotlight on America discovered red flag laws haven't been used in huge numbers. California has taken guns from 600-some people since its law passed in 2016, while in D.C. only 2 orders have been issued in the first year of the district's law.
There are a lot of people may be worried, is the government going to come take your guns? And the answer is no.
While the idea of a federal red flag law has gone nowhere, last year top lawmakers talked about offering states incentives to get more on board with creating their own red flag laws.
In Connecticut, once the respondent does have a chance to tell his or her side of the story, 32% of confiscation orders are overturned.
While critics argued the dangers of seizing guns from potentially innocent people in one-sided hearings they believe violate civil rights.
One can always give a gun back. I cannot get her life back.
Amanda Wilcox pleaded to lawmakers about the potential to save lives. She couldn't protect her only daughter from what she considers preventable gun violence. But she's trying to give meaning to such a tragic and senseless death.
I do it because that's how I live with what happened. It's how I remember Laura. It's how I honor Laura. I have to do it. I can't live with what happened without trying to create some change in her name to save lives.
I'm Josie Sturman for Spotlight on America.